Hello everybody, my name is SupDogRainbarf and welcome back to Movie Review. Today we are going to be reviewing Iron Lung. As you can see, the trailer's playing in the background. Now, Iron Lung came out really recently. If you don't know what it is, it's a small, self-funded film by Markiplier, a YouTuber. He based it off of a game, a horror game, and the gist of it is the gist of the game, you're in a submarine underwater or under an ocean of blood on a moon, and you have to take pictures. You can't see like out of a window in front of you. You have to take pictures to see, and like slowly builds up to this grand ending. Um, Now for this video, I have several notes. So let me open up my notepad. The way I'm doing this review is it's going to be out of 10 stars. Um, you have a chance of earning 0 stars if your movie is that dog shit. But yeah, each positive point that I have will be a star, and each negative point that I have will just be nothing. So I have 10 points to make in this video. Um, But first, let me tell you what I personally think, because I made all of these points like unbiased. But what I personally think, I think the movie is pretty good, or not pretty good. I personally like the movie. That's what it is, and I think that you should go out and see it at least once in theaters. I think it's worth it. Um, Now if I think the movie is good or bad, we'll get to that in a bit. My first point is that I think the cinematography itself was phenomenal. It was some of the best cinematography that I have seen in a movie, actually. Now, like, in terms of budget, right? This was self funded, it's small. So it is incredibly impressive that he was able to do such amazing cinematography with such a small set. The set was pretty small. Because it's just a small submarine that you're in. But yeah, I thought it was impressive, the cinematography. Now, mm, would I put it better than something like Interstellar? I don't think so. Interstellar was on another level, but I do think the cinematography for me was a 10 out of 10. Now my second point. So that was a positive start for that first one. My second point, number 2, was also positive. It had a great cast. Um, all of the actors in general did a pretty good job. Markiplier, of course, was the main star of the show, but you had actors for other things. You also had Troy Baker, which was surprising to me, honestly. Um, I thought the cast was pretty good, and I thought they did their job well. Now, my third point, another star. I think this could go into. Let's loop. Digging in his butt? Brother, what? I have loop on, right? Alright. So I can also turn. I don't even have audio capture for this, it's fine. Um Acting by Mark was stellar. Yeah. I think the acting itself was phenomenal. Um for those who have seen The Edge of Sleep by Markiplier, it's an Amazon original show that he was in. I think his acting was not the best there. It wasn't bad per se, but it was it had some things to be desired. He was all in for this, and it really shows. It with such a small set, and with him being pretty much the only focus that the viewers have the entire movie, the acting has to be perfect. to keep the viewers watching, and he really did great doing that. The emotion felt genuine. The reactions to what was happening I felt like they were reasonable in character, what someone would have done. And I think that like I think it was just really good. Now, as a video game adaptation, number 4, the fourth point, I think it's also positive. I think that it did a really fantastic job as a video game adaptation. It managed to capture the dread that you would feel or the person would feel in the submarine in the original video game. Um, I think it really did a good job at adapting the video game itself. It um the source material didn't have that much, so he did do some expanding, some personal writing to make it more fleshed out for a 2 hour long movie. But I think it did a really good job at adapting it. Now, the directing itself, Markiplier was the director. I think the directing, the 6 point, was phenomenal. Um, he did a really good job at this creative vision that he had, and he knew what would work for this story and what wouldn't. Now, it's really not easy for me to comment much on the directing, but because I don't know much about what a director does. I do know that they can make or break a movie. Markiplier, I think he did a good job at directing this. I think obviously, yeah, it's the director's creative vision that leads a movie. That's what it is. That's why the Zack Snyder DC movies mostly sucked ass. And if you wanna argue with me on that, that's a different video. Um, Number 6, I think that they did the set in a pretty cool way. Now, obviously, it's a small set. The movie, you're stuck in a submarine under this ocean of blood. The set is so small that it's going to feel claustrophobic. I think that's a big part of the horror, but also it has to be interesting enough to keep viewers' attention throughout the movie. And I think there is some stuff that he builds to the set. He adds to the set as the movie goes on. Um like what we see of the set at first isn't what we see at the set at the end. But I think they did a pretty good job with that. It was pretty cool how they did the set. Now, number 7, this is where we start getting to the bad points. I think the horror wasn't scary for me. In terms of horror, it had body horror. It had a lot of tension and a lot of dread building and building over the movie. There were some like scares, I would say. Now, I'm not scared easily. That is one thing that I have to say. Um and my personal opinion on like horror is I'm more of a psychological horror type of guy, not really a body horror type of guy. So I think if you're into like body horror movies, this would be something to watch for you, and this would genuinely unnerve you. Um, but it's just not something that was scary to me. Also, another thing that adds to the horror is the claustrophobia of being in this ship. You could hear the creaking or the ship, the submarine. You could hear the creaking of the submarine and you could see everything going down. And I think if you are a claustrophobic person, especially if you're really claustrophobic, that would genuinely unnerve you. Now, number 8, I think that also another bad point. I think that it was a boring plot. He did an excellent job at adapting the video game into a movie, but the video game itself, I personally always thought was boring as fuck. There are a lot of people who really like the game, and that's good on them. It really did a lot of innovating in the horror genre. Um, it really was good at build up. It was really great at that. But I think that itself, the idea of the story for the video game is kind of boring. You're in a submarine and it's just build up, no like, and just tension. But at a certain point in 2 hours long of a movie, that tension just stops building and you're like, oh, he's in the submarine, you know? Now, number nine, my ninth point, the ending wasn't great. I'm not going to get into too much details because I want to have this an accurate, unbiased review, but I don't want to do too much spoilers. Um, the ending wasn't great. I think that in terms of like the video game, I think the ending was probably a bit better than the video game's ending, but even still, that and by the way, the movie did do the build up till the ending, and it did do for the types of horror that it wanted to do. It did a decent enough ending. They just weren't that scary to me. Um, but yeah, I think that the ending itself was lacking because of the source material. And I feel like if Markiplier were to do a movie of his own creation, his own ideas, or a movie of another video game with a more interesting plot, he would have, or he might have an idea for that in the future, but he would blow it out of the park, I think. But this ending was kind of lame. Um, Now number 10, this is my last point. At times, I think the story was hard to follow. He added his own stuff to the story. Um, yeah, he added his own stuff to the story to flesh it out, make it more interesting and more engaging to viewers. Because if you're just in a submarine for 2 hours, you're in a submarine for 2 hours. People who are in submarines in real life get bored fucking fast. And the military has to invent methods so they don't lose their marbles down there. Um, and that it does play into the horror element, right? You're slowly losing your mind in this submarine, but I think that the story itself, made to entertain the viewers, wasn't the easiest to follow at times. It made sense in the end. You were starting to understand what was going on at the end, but I think for some viewers it might be a turn off to not be able to understand what's going on like halfway through a movie. Yeah. So that's all 10 points that I made. As you can see, it's 6 positive points, 4 negative points. That's a 6 out of 10 review. So 6 stars, 6 stars. And I personally think the movie was likable for me. I enjoyed it. Even though I saw all of these things wrong with the movie, I think it was a, positive experience. And I think it's not a movie that I would personally watch again, but I do recommend to watch it at least once, especially if you're into body horror or if you're into horror revolving claustrophobia, or if you just want to, support Markiplier's vision. This was all self-funded and it's in theaters worldwide, which is really impressive. But yeah, I think it's a worth it movie to watch. I think it's just above mid as a movie. But I think it's pretty good. For me. It might be different for you. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.